What's up, everybody? I'm John Middlekauff. You know what I need you to do. Subscribe to our YouTube channel. We got content for days reacting to every NFL game all the time, every single day. Subscribe, like the videos. Let's go. What is going on, everybody? Happy Fugazi Friday. How's everyone doing? We've had I'm recording this. By the time you listen to this, you've had over 24 hours. Digest the NFL schedule, whoever your squad is, to do the win-loss game. And, you know, I don't care who your team is. If your team's really good, you probably lean 14-15. If your team's like fringe playoff, you're leaning 10-11. If your team stinks, you're being optimistic trying to get to that 9 number so you're over 500. Listen, it's a fun game to play. Today we're going to do a big mailbag. At John Middlekauff is the Instagram. Fire in those DMs and get your questions answered on the show. We did a podcast last night right after the schedule was released, and we tried to decipher everything that was going on, which is a lot. Given that we already know who's playing everybody, but we found the dates and who's streaming what and what games are on Christmas and all that good stuff. But today will be heavy mailbag, be only mailbag. So get us going, flowing into the weekend. So at John Middlekauff is the Instagram. Fire in those DMs. But before we dive into the bag, you know I got to tell you about my friends, my partners, and the official ticketing app of this podcast. You want to go to a game? You want to go to a concert? You want to go to a comedy show? Get in on the action because Game Time is the best ticketing app I've ever used for anything. I've been to concerts on them. I've been to basically every sport except the NFL on them, which I know many of you have utilized. So if you're looking at this NFL schedule and you want to take advantage of it, it doesn't get any easier. You just download that app. You can search by venue. You can search by the team. You can search by the price point, whether you're going to a concert. It gives you the angle of the stage, which I've utilized multiple times. So take the guesswork out of buying tickets with Game Time. Download the Game Time app, create an account, and use the code JOHN for $20 off your first purchase. Terms apply. Again, create an account and redeem the code JOHN for $20 off. Download the Game Time app today. Last minute tickets, lowest prices guaranteed. Okay, let's dive into this thing. We will start with, he doesn't have a name, he just has numbers on his handle. So, can you discuss the book that interviews Caleb and his dad and all the measures they took to try to avoid the Chicago Bears? Well, speaking of Fugazi Friday, his father in the excerpt that they put on ESPN.com had a line. There was a lot going on. His dad wanted to circumvent the NFL draft, wanted to go to the UFL to avoid going to Chicago. They wanted to force their way to Minnesota. They wanted to end the rookie wage scale and get equity. I do the Fugazi of the rookie wage scale. I'm old enough to remember when guys like Jamarcus Russell were getting $80 million guaranteed. I mean, by the end of it, Ndamukong Suh's, Sam Bradford's were making more than the majority of NFL players. And do you know who benefited from this once the CBA changed in 2011 to change that rookie wage scale to get it under control? The actual players in the NFL, the veteran guys who the league is built on their backs and are actually playing in the games that are generating all the revenue. A big reason for a long time, Belichick used to trade out of the first round because he did not want to pay a guy a first-round salary that was more than most guys on his own team. I don't know that it just won the fucking Super Bowl. So that comment to me made me laugh. The circumvent the draft thing playing in the UFL also made me laugh. Caleb Williams was never, ever going to take a snap with UFL players. But I do have a rule. When you are a parent, when you are a family member, I take everything you say in regards to your professional athlete, you know, whether it's your brother, whether it's your child, with a grain of salt. Like, I give you a little more leash for saying outrageous things. So, yeah, did some of these things sound pretty insane? They did. Guess what? None of them happened. None of them happened. And I'm recording this before I record the podcast a little later today with Colin. I'm sure we're going to talk about it. Colin said last year that he does not want to go to the Bears. And clearly Caleb, like his dad, and listen, I haven't seen a quote from his dad since, pre-draft process. But like you got to be careful in these type situations to write checks that you don't have to cash. Your son does. Like this doesn't help Caleb Williams. Do you know who sees these quotes? Other players in the NFL. I mean, so, and listen, Caleb's comments about avoiding the Bears, isn't that crazy? Like people talk, like it is a place where quarterbacks go to die. And Matt Eberflus is one of the worst head coaches we will ever see. Shane Waldron, by all accounts, is kind of a scam artist. Like no one's disputing that. But the comments that people will remember are his dad's quotes. Guess what? His dad is never going to do. Take a snap playing quarterback for the Bears. Now, I also think Ryan Poles' comment, I forget exactly what it was. Do I still have the article up? I don't because, no, I do. So I just don't want to screw up this quote. It's so good. Poles. So basically, I need to go to the Vikings. That's what Caleb told his dad. Let's do it, his father replied. But both Caleb and Carl knew, Carl's his dad, that a trade to a divisional rival was extremely unlikely. Bears GM Ryan Poles stood firm, telling Caleb, we're drafting you no matter what, which I appreciate. It's very like anti-player empowerment. Like we're in charge in this league. The GMs, the coaches, we run this shit. But I also laugh because my guy Adam Peters in Washington, people will forget now because Jaden had one of the great rookie years ever and resurrected a franchise. He took a lot of shit because he took every quarterback not named Caleb Williams to Topgolf. He brought them all in on a 30 visit. And everyone's like, what is this guy doing? Does Adam Peters know what's going on? You know what it turns out his job is to do? Evaluate every dude in the draft. And even if you're leaning one way, take out the bias of in January, February, March. Like, let's get them all in a room and see if we can help get some clarity on who we like. The Bears didn't do any of that. They were dealing with this all. And listen, it was easy to take Caleb. That's what the media told you to do. That's what the fans told you to do. The hype machine. Who cares about the hype machine? Your job was to get it right. Because I'll tell you this right now, Adam Peters, who drafted number 2, is there any way on God's green earth that he would trade Jaden Daniels for Caleb Williams? And people will be like, Middlekauff, you're just so down on Caleb. No, I'm not. Caleb can still have a fine career. But everyone in the NFL would choose that. And I also find it funny that Jaden's mom are making sure those hoes don't get too close to their son. And Caleb's dad's worried about changing the CBA, which he's never going to change, which is really just anti most rookie players, let alone quarterbacks. But I think historically, I remember looking into this, not this draft, but the last draft. Over the course of like 3 years, on average, it was basically 50% of players do not get their 5th year option picked up. So you want to give those guys the going rate for a veteran, right? Tet McMillan should get the same amount of money as, I don't know, just who, Amon-Ra St. Brown. Like, that's a problem. That's not a well-run business. And in fairness to the players who negotiated this, they realized this is a fugazi. And that comment to me, but again, like, it is what it is. None of this actually happened. He's on the Bears. Eberflus and all those guys got fired. And these are old comments that ultimately didn't matter. I just don't think that it makes, like, this isn't a win for Caleb. This isn't one of those, like, all the NFL players, like, your dad, man, he's sweet. Like, ultimately, like, I totally understand parents being really involved as college players. But, like, once you get to the big leagues, and I think I clicked on it, they gave him a $40 million guaranteed contract. No one wants to hear from fucking mom or dad about your professional life. I'm sorry, that's just a reality of life. The biggest names, the brightest stage. Championship level swings are lighting up Charlotte this week, and DraftKings Sportsbook has you covered for every thrill and moment. From the first tee shot to the Sunday's final putt, experience every shot like never before. You can live bet, You can play props and so much more. New to golf betting? Don't worry, I got you covered. You're in good company with DraftKings Sportsbook. Kick things off with a simple pick, like choosing who you think will win. Here's the thing. Lines and odds are subject to change. But I love Bryson DeChambeau to win this tournament, plus 950. Other good bets that I like. Xander Schauffele to top 10, plus 180. Justin Thomas to top 10, plus 175. And if you want a little bit of a flyer, a little bit of a long shot, I can give you Gary Woodland to top 20 at plus 450. And here's the big win for new users. Bet just $5 and score 200 in bonus bets instantly. Love listening to the pod. After the schedule released, what do you think the Chiefs' record for the season could be, and how good do you think they're going to be this upcoming season? I think when the schedule doesn't even need to come out. God, I'm still these allergies. You look at it and you go Kansas City 12-14. And if you want to be bearish on the Chiefs, you go 11, because that's their low point since Patrick Mahomes has been started. My guess, I think if I was being conservative, I go 12-5. That's what I do. I do 12-5. I don't need to look at their schedule. I don't need to. I mean, I know they play the 5 primetime games, and in the first 8 weeks, obviously you play Christmas, you play Thanksgiving, but they win a lot more games than they don't. And everyone's like, "What's up with the Chiefs?" And then you look up and they went 15-2. They got the best coach in the league. They got a quarterback who, even if it's weird, right? We consider him the best quarterback, even though he hasn't played better than Lamar and Josh, at least in the regular season the last couple of years. But when the dust settles, and typically when a game ends and it's, the fourth quarter clock hits 0-0, it's like the Chiefs have more points than the other team. So, I mean, I think you'd have to be on drugs to think the Chiefs are not going to have a good record. Now, is there going to come a year, given how competitive their division is, that they don't win it? Sure. But I think the Chiefs are a borderline lock playoff. No, there's no borderline. They are a lock playoff team every single time the league starts, and Andy Reid's their head coach, Spags is their defensive coordinator, and Patrick Mahomes is their quarterback. What are your thoughts on the Lions' schedule? At the Packers, Ben Johnson returns. At Ravens, then the Browns. They get Burrow and Mahomes on the road. Then Bucks, Vikings, Commanders, Eagles, all by mid-November. Keep up the good work. Who dey? Well, the NFC North, their divisions are just hard, right? They're playing the AFC North, and they are playing the NFC East. So and obviously when you're Lions, you have the first place schedule. You just get some of those hard games within the conference. So it's hard. But I'm giving the Lions, I wouldn't say the Chiefs treatment or the Eagles. I mean, those Chiefs have been to 5 Super Bowls in 6 years, and the Eagles just won the Super Bowl and they went to another one 3 years ago. But I'm going to treat them like the Ravens or the Bills. I expect them to just have double-digit wins and be good. Now, how good? Injuries take a toll. Schedule takes a toll. Maybe they don't win as many games they did last year, but I would be stunned given they have arguably the best roster in the NFL. Now, you got new coordinators, which is never easy, but I think they are a lock playoff team. So that's where I consider moving forward. Question for the bag. I don't mean talk NBA guys, but Nick Wright calling people morons for thinking the Mavs getting the number 1 pick is rigged is insane to me. Clearly, the NBA was struggling with the ratings, so they wanted to pump up their star franchise. Have Nico be the fall guy, and in return to compensate the Mavs and Cooper Flagg. Is this the most obvious rigging of sports you've ever seen? It's almost like how you can not see that something had been, cannot see that, or at least think that it may have been rigged. Love the pod. I just think to tell anyone who just follows sports, specifically the NBA, which has had a long history of red flag doing some shady shit. Listen, the NBA is in the entertainment business. And last time I checked, there's a lot of money on the line. And sometimes I think the media, their lack of understanding of business, I saw a lot of people tweeting this. How could you think that Ernst & Young is auditing this? They would never cheat. Like, have you Googled Ernst& Young? Have you ever worked with an accountant? Their job is literally to push the envelope. And regardless of that, like, I wouldn't even blame Adam Silver. Honestly, like, if you said, John, if you were Adam Silver, would you do this? I would say 1,000,000% I would do this. If I could control it, I would do this. Why? Because it's the healthiest thing for the league to have the Lakers be good when LeBron is done playing. So if I could just give them Luca, I would. But to just go, well, there's no way it could never happen, just from a bunch of NBA media people. Like, I'm sorry. One, like, to think that this couldn't happen is laughable. Did it happen for sure? Like, if you put a gun to my head, am I like, I don't know. But it was extremely shady the way it all played out. And to not understand why people would question it. And listen, he's not alone. A lot of people are like, this guy is a fucking idiot for thinking it's rigged. I I remember being in high school. The Italian mafia in Philadelphia literally rigged the Western Conference Finals. And then David Stern was like, rogue guy, didn't happen. And it just went away. Obviously, there's a long history with number one picks for being extremely shady. And again, I'm not anti any of this. Unlike these guys, I'm pro business. Like, I'm pro the money flow. I would do the same thing. And given their situation, like the craziest trade in the history of sports out of left field in the middle of the night, and then a couple months later, they get the number one overall pick. Like, to think that shady shit didn't go on, it would just be would be an insult to all of our intelligence. It really would. I mean, I think sometimes it's funny what businesses, billion-dollar businesses, the media gives the benefit of the doubt, and the other, and which ones fall into the category of complete screw job, fucking everybody. It's just weird how that works. For whatever reason, the NBA media is extremely loyal to carrying, like, Adam Silver would never do anything shady. David Stern might. Adam, no. Too skinny, too bald, too progressive. This is more of a comment. You've talked several times in the past, mostly around your wedding, about waiting till you figured out your life career before settling down. And earlier this week, you mentioned how you were never moving back home once you moved out at 18. I lived at home in college to stay debt free until I got married at 21 while still an undergrad. My wife and I have been married for 7 years now, owned our house for 4, low interest rate, and just finished graduate school this week. It hasn't always been easy, but we figured it out together and has been fun doing so. You have a lot of young men who listen to your show and look for advice. And I do think, I don't think your perspective in this area are wrong. I just think it's important for people to realize there are multiple ways to become successful in life depending on where you come from and what your goals are. Sometimes you need to be an ambitious lone wolf, and sometimes you can chase your dreams alongside the right person. Well, congratulations to you and what looks like all your success at a young age. Anything that I ever say is simply my experience. I'm a huge believer in life. However you want to do something and however you want to live your life is completely on you. I'm a huge believer in let me do me and I'll let you do you. That's why it's such a big issue with 2020. It's like, well, I got way too many fucking people telling me what to do. I don't roll like that. Big reason I'm sitting right here in Arizona. But to think that I've ever lectured anybody, and I'm not even saying you're saying that, on to get married early or late or to move out at home or to stay at home, you have to trust your gut in life. So you know your situation way better than any human knows your situation, beside maybe in your, a significant other or maybe a parent. But I will never, ever tell anyone this is what you have to do. I can only come at it from my perspective and or other people in my life. I could list 10 people that have done it 10 different ways. There is no direct path in life to anything. We all take different routes. So I have never, at least I have tried to never tell someone specifically, this is how you have to do X, Y, and Z to get this. I can just give you the way I did it and what I was thinking. Not only like I was never going back home. I would never have lived at home. If you want to live at home, that's great. My brother lives next to my mother now. You know, I was never going to do that. My brother's life's going really well. Got a couple young kids, a wife that's able to stay at home. He's a successful guy. Like, so it's like there are 100 ways. The best part about this world we live in America is you can take 100 paths and we can all end up in similar destinations. But my path, your path, the next guy's path are all different. And I'm not one thing we will not do here. And just speaking of you know, the rig thing, I am a big believer in never lecturing anyone. Too many people in the media do that, and I know I immediately turn off their shit. Now I can give you my opinion on something, but I try very, very hard to never lecture anyone. This is how you have to do it. If you want to be better than this person, personally, professionally, politically, this is where you have to stand. Be on the right side of history. Those people make me want to puke in my mouth. If you become a GM of an NFL team right now, would you pick an established power to start from scratch to build something you can take sole credit for, assuming a world where toxic ownership doesn't get in your way? Uh, would you pick an established power or you mean a team? It's a great question. I think again, my experience, I worked for the Eagles. They're the only NFL team I'd ever worked for, right? And even sometimes when I tell people this, I lived in Philadelphia for a couple of years. The first reaction they have is, "Oh, those fans are assholes. Oh, it's miserable there." And I'd say, I kind of have the opposite experience. It really mattered. I worked for, the team slash business in that city, one of the biggest cities in America, that on the rankings of like 1 through 10 was much closer to 1 than 10 in terms of importance to everyone in that city. And yeah, if things don't go right, people get pissed. But you would much rather work for a place, especially in sports, where it's kind of the end all be all. Sometimes it can have its downfalls, especially when things are going bad. But when things are going good, there's nowhere you'd rather be than Alabama football or the New York Yankees or the LA Lakers or the Philadelphia Eagles. Yeah, it gets toxic when things get bad. So why? Because people care. So I would choose, like, if you told me you get the chance to two jobs open, they both suck. Actually, I think the Cardinals might be solid, but I'm just the Arizona Cardinal. If I'm a GM, Arizona Cardinals or the New York Giants, and both owners say you get to be the GM of either, right? And you control, you get to hire the coach, pick the players. I would choose the Giants. Fan base way bigger. It just matters more to the NFL, right? So I think that most GMs sometimes you don't have a choice. Like if the only person offering you the job is the Jags. People think I hate the Jags. I really don't. I'm just using the Texans, some of these teams that just don't quite have like there's a difference between the Texans and the Cowboys. More fans. Doesn't mean it doesn't suck to be the GM. Like they're only 32 jobs, so you don't usually have your pick of the litter. Curious your thoughts on the mailbag question about Terry Bradshaw being a top 10 all-time quarterback. I'm in my 60s, so I watched the Steelers during the 70s. The one unique thing about Bradshaw that he called his own plays. So, in a sense, he was the quarterback in OC. I think he gets a few extra flowers for that. Love to hear your thoughts and love the Golo pod very much. I appreciate that. It's just really hard for me to comment on players I didn't watch. Clearly he's a really good player. You know, I just don't have a great feel for like ranking guys in their 70s, that played in the 70s, right? Because I think if I had watched it, I'd be like, well, Terry Bradshaw wasn't better than these three guys, or it's like I would definitely take him over these three guys, right? And I just can't in good conscience. Like I can't have a legitimate argument. Like if I could get both guys at 23 years old, would I take Drew Brees or Terry Bradshaw? And if I had watched them both play, maybe it'd be an easy argument. Like, well, yeah, you can't compare the stats, but I would much rather have Terry Bradshaw. I'm just using that, pulling that from my what. But it's just really difficult for me to do. And I do think that's why people give like Peyton Manning a lot of credit is because he called the plays and he was the offensive coordinator. I remember hearing a story when I was in the NFL. that like as they'd walk out to practice, he'd ask for the practice plan. I don't even know if this was training camp, the regular season, might have been like most practices. And they'd hand it to him and he'd ask for a red pen and he'd make corrections. This is before practice started. So like Peyton, his resume is never going to look like Brady's, right? He only won two. Hell, he's one less than Mahomes. Like, look at the people calling plays when he was there. I just want to say, as a Bears fans, the schedule makers are devious with the matchups and storylines. I feel as though the Bears and the Vikings primetime is asking the audience the question: what's more effective, playing the rookie immediately or sitting him for a year? I think it's a good game. I mean, I just think you're looking at big markets. You know, the thing with the Bears is there is no guarantee they're going to be good, right? So utilizing them early with all this Caleb momentum is a lot different than week 10 if they're 4-6. And for some reason, I just end up knowing a lot of Bears fans, and they all say it's just so hard to not be pessimistic when everyone's like, oh, this is the year. They got Ben Johnson, they got all this. Like, we've seen this rodeo. And you just look on paper and it's like, what if Ben Johnson's sweet? If Caleb's solid, they should be good. But sometimes they're not. There's a reason Carl Williams was like, that place sucks, which I do agree with him there. As a guy who is having a bachelor party in the near future, there's not a snowball's chance in hell I'd have a co-ed bachelor party. I don't want couples fighting or too many people trying to mix at one time, no matter the age or how close the friend group is. Sounds like a nightmare. This was in regards to the co-ed bachelor party I've never heard of. So again, I don't know if that's mixing bachelorette and bachelor party, which, like you said, would still probably be a bad idea, let alone the co-ed, like bringing your significant others. It could just be weird. Diehard fan of the pod. This question is off topic of football, so I heard you talk about a couple shows you watched a few weeks ago, and I wanted to ask, have you checked out Mobland and the Righteous Gemstones, and what's your opinion of the shows if you've watched them? I've watched bits and pieces of the Righteous Gemstones, but never really got into that show. I was, when we were getting married, I was watching the hotel, the episode with Bradley Cooper. That episode was pretty good. Uh, but I think that's like just this recent season. It's like season 4. Mobland, I did start the other night, but I fell asleep. You know, I took a couple melatonins and I was out like 5 minutes in. So I have not seen that, but read good things. I need to dive in. You know, I'm torn on Tom Hardy. I feel like Tom Hardy gets a lot of hype. He's kind of like a cult hero. Feels like he's a guy on like an NBA team that averages 30, but the team only wins like 27 games. The voice always throws me off. I want to like him. It's like, yeah, he's probably an all-star. But then sometimes I watch him. It's like, is he overhyped? It's like I'm told too much about him. It's like I just hear. It's like a musician. It's like, this guy's awesome. This guy's awesome. This guy's awesome. Then you hear him for the first time. You're like, what the hell? When I was a kid, I remember Tom Petty. I just had a bunch of older people in my life. You know, when I was like 13, 14, they're just people that were my parents were a little older, so some of their friends had like just kids in their they were maybe 10 years older than me. And I just remember hearing about Tom Petty. So I finally, like 15, 16, bought Tom Petty's greatest hits. I remember the first time I listened to it in my Ford Explorer 94, just puke brown, ugly car. But had a sweet little sound system in, thinking like, Tom Petty sucks. I would say in 2025, May 15th, sitting here, Tom Petty's on like my Mount Rushmore. I could listen to Tom Petty all day, every day. So some things are an acquired taste. I didn't like tomatoes when I was young. I never order a sandwich now without a tomato. Question for the bag. Chiefs played on Christmas Day and Black Friday. In 25, they will play on Christmas Day for the third consecutive year, as well as Thanksgiving. Do you think the NFL are priming Kansas City to be America's team? I don't think they're priming. I just think they've kind of become that. I mean, they're the highest rated team currently in the NFL. They've proven that. When you put them on primetime with Patrick Mahomes, Travis Kelce, Taylor at the games, the most people watch. So I just think the networks know this. They're fighting over it. Jim Nantz and Romo call most of their games. When they don't, they're, Sunday night or Monday Night Football. And now those primetime games on Thanksgiving and Christmas, I mean, is a Thanksgiving game. Chiefs, Cowboys? I mean, my question is about Anthony Richardson. I'm a big-time Colts fan and have been seeing all over Twitter, AR Dark Horse, candidate for comeback player of the year. Richardson is going to light up the league this season. How can people be so delusional? The tape doesn't lie, and I almost bet my life that he isn't the guy. I mean, I think it's 50-50 at best. He's the starting quarterback week one. If I was betting right now, I would. You had to bet on one of the two of them, and I think Daniel Jones stinks as well. But sometimes, like when you bring in that situation, that person, that's kind of who you want. In a weird way, it's easy to be a competition. Is it possible that the head coach and the GM are already out on the quarterback? They can say whatever they want. When you give Daniel Jones $15 million a year to make sure you get him because he clearly had other options, I think if all things are equal, Daniel Jones is the quarterback. That would be my guess right now. So when you comeback player of the year, if he's comeback player of the year, Chris Ballard and Shane Steichen are getting extensions because that means he's playing well and they're winning. The Commanders have 6 primetime games. People of a younger generation don't associate this franchise with winning, but historically, they've been a powerhouse with amazing fans. Do you think the new age of Washington could be dominant? And how do you think the team will look like with the pressure to perform? When you say people of a younger generation, I'm 40 years old. I've been watching NFL football coherently probably since like 93. I don't remember them being really good. So it has been a long time. It's not like a generation or two. Like it's been a long time since they were good. So I think that I mean, Dan Snyder was the owner there for what, 20 years almost? More? 20, 22? Like that was a long time of just batshit crazy operation. I mean, they kind of became like I don't even know, like some big market Sacramento Kings. I mean, it was nuts. So I think sometimes we throw that around. It'd be like, hey, the young generation doesn't remember the Giants going to the playoffs. I think that'd be fair to say, or the Jets going to the playoffs. It's been whatever, 15 years. There are several generations that don't remember Washington being good at football. I think anytime when I don't want to say they got to sneak up on people because once you have a good record late in the season, people take you seriously. But like once you've been winning for a while, you're like every time a team plays the Chiefs, the Ravens, the Bills, Jalen Hurts and the Eagles, the Lions now, like people are approaching it like this is going to be the hardest game of the season. Think about the Lions. After the year they went 9-8 and they beat the Packers to end the season, ending Aaron Rodgers' career there, but they missed the playoffs. The next year, it was like, are the Lions actually good? And they kind of got to fly under the radar. And then last year, nobody, when the schedule came out, was like, Lions are one of the best teams in the league. And they were missing guys. They're getting everyone's best shot. And they answered the bell. So I think part of the hardest thing to do as a team sometimes is that second season when everyone knows you're good, especially when you have a young quarterback. It's one thing if you have one thing the Lions had going for them is they had a veteran quarterback. So like Jared Goff had been to the playoffs, had been to the Super Bowl. He had been through Sean McVay shitting on his career. Like he'd seen a lot of stuff. Lost in college. Jaden now has had, and it's been awesome, an incredible 2-year run. But it's not like he has like 7 years to go off of, right? Now, you could argue sometimes guys that have been through the mud, and he did go through the mud. I mean, I was in this golf tournament I'm in last week. So many ASU guys, whenever Jaden Daniels was coming up, because, these ASU grads would be like, I can't believe how good he is now. It turns out it might have just been Herm Edwards. I don't know. But I think the Commanders are going to be good. But like a dominant team, you got to prove that. And in the NFL, and this is why it becomes cliche and people laugh like when coaches and GMs speak, but it is true. You got to be very, very careful about kind of feeling yourself. And I think that's a good life lesson for, any human when you have a little success is like, just keep your mouth shut a little bit, keep your head down and keep swinging and keep building on that. Sometimes you stick your chest out, you get a little cocky. Life will humble you fast. Now, that's where I think they benefit from having Dan Quinn, and you could argue Cliff. I mean, those guys have seen some shit. So there is going to be a point of emphasis on like, we're going to keep swinging. We're not going to walk in to week one in training camp like we're the greatest thing since sliced bread. That's where having a veteran head coach who just has won, who's been fired, who's kind of just been through the ringer, I think really, really benefits Washington. You draft a team once and act as the GM, your franchise from there on out. Every year your roster remains the same, then drafting new rookies in the NFL. I have the first pick in the draft this year, and of course, Jeanty is projected to go number one. That being said, I'm contemplating taking Omarion Hampton. He's on a better team with a better coach, better O line, and a proven efficient run game. My friends all say I'm crazy and maybe, but I wanted to get your opinion. Who do you think will be the better running back over the course of their career? Uh, I will just take a running back playing for Jim Harbaugh every day of the week. So your logic of better team, I mean, their offensive line is good. And the way that team plays is going to translate. Now, Pete Carroll historically wants to run the ball. So if you told me Pete Carroll wasn't 74 years old, but he was 60, I'd say it'd be a legit coin flip. But I don't think you can go wrong if you end up with Hampton and Jeanty goes above you. Jeanty's going to be good. But the other thing is that division's hard, right? So you had 6 games against Chiefs, Denver, Chargers. If you're Jeanty, that I don't know, some of the best defenses in the league. It's not exactly New Mexico. Question for the mailbag. Now that free agency is over, I've been curious that there seems to be two-type owners when it comes to coaches that the owners are patient with and coaches the owners constantly run through. When I look at more patient owners like the Bengals, Ravens, and Steelers, their teams usually have an identity. But teams like the Falcons, Jags, and Colts have no idea what they're doing. And I think a team should give a coach a minimum of 3 years to establish their identity. Well, I think the Ravens and the Steelers, for example, have organizational philosophies. Like they have organizational beliefs on how to play. So when you go to the Steelers, like we have a pretty good idea of what the Rooney family wants. Forever, you know, I mean, I was young, but anyone older listening to this, like you went to the Al Davis Raiders, there were some things that were just no brainers, right? It's why people laugh when a guy runs a 4.3 at the combine and been like, Al Davis would have loved him because it doesn't matter who the coach is. The coach is going to shape into the organization, right? And I think some of these teams use the who'd you use? Uh, use the Colts, Falcons, Jags. Well, think about the Colts. In their heyday, what was their identity? Their identity was a player. It was Peyton Manning. And then for a short period of time, they just got to replace him with one of the great prospects of all time, Luck. Their identity was the quarterback. It's the Falcons. Like they've run through, like they had a really good quarterback. But when you think the Falcons, even going back to like prime time in the 90s, I don't know, they've done run and shoot. They just kind of all over the map. They've had like Sarkisian, they've had Kyle. Like I don't think Steve Sarkisian and Kyle are the same at all. So I think some people just kind of, which is hard. It's not easy to do. Like you think Arthur Blank has a football philosophical belief? Of course not. His belief is I want to make money and put myself in the Hall of Fame. But he's very dependent. Like the Rooney family, obviously they benefit from having Mike, who is just we could nitpick Mike Tomlin all we want. He's clearly knows what he's doing. But like the way Mike Tomlin views football is a lot like the Rooneys. Why do you think they hired him at 35 years old? And he has a philosophical belief on toughness, on mental toughness, on how ideally we want to play, on the type guys we want. And I think the Ravens have basically become the better version of the Steelers, right? They're just a better team, but like they're carbon copies. And, like the 49ers. Do the 49ers have an identity? if Kyle quit tomorrow and they hired whoever, the next Liam Cohen or Ben Johnson, it would just be whatever those guys. Like Jed York doesn't have an identity. Stan Kroenke doesn't have an identity. So I'd say it's pretty unique. Like I'll say this, having been with the Eagles, like Jeffrey Lurie wants to throw the ball. Look, Jeffrey Lurie's got some football takes. He wants to pass. He loves wide receivers in the passing game because statistically, he believes the passing game is the way to win. Now, I do think he's been taught over the years from Andy and then how he's carried this to understand and get behind. Like he will always support physical linemen. You want to draft linemen high in the first round, wherever you're drafting the first round, he ain't getting in front of you. But some of these owners like don't even know football, right? They know business. They would have, Dave Tepper would have some like hardcore financial philosophical beliefs. These are do's and don'ts of companies I invest in or won't invest in. And he would be adamant. Like, before I would invest in this company, I would never. You'd have to throw me off a bridge before I'd press buy. But when it comes to football, like, he doesn't have any, which I understand. Like, I don't even blame him for not having any takes. I was a NCAA D3 golfer. Been listening to you for over a year and football fan, so we have a lot in common. Well, I mean, you're a much better golfer than me because I promise you the D3 golf team would have turned me away. Even got an assistantship for my golf team in college. Go North Central Cardinals. We're solid in football. Here's my question. I'm a lifetime Browns fan. You question Arch Manning being the expected to be the number one pick. But is Sanders any different? If Arch had the college career Sanders had, does he go with the first pick? Well, yeah. If he puts up the same numbers that Shedeur put up in the SEC, if Shedeur had done what he did in the SEC, there's one issue. I don't know if I have mentioned this before. One thing I've heard, maybe I have talked about it, is Shedeur. What really hurt him is obviously I can't speak to his interactions with the Giants and the Browns and the bad teams. I do know the good teams, like the playoff teams, who just like if you work for the Chiefs or the Eagles or the Ravens as like the scouting director or as the college director, you utilize your coaches at the combine, at the Senior Bowl, at all these events to talk to all the guys. So even if there's a player that you're never going to draft in this draft, your assistant coach or one of your scouts is still interviewing him and getting to know him. So you go back to meetings and you can talk about your interactions. And all the players are talking to everybody for the most part, right? The occasional, like, Abdul Carter can turn you down. He's going top 5. If Travis Hunter doesn't want to talk with the Ravens, it's not that weird, right? But the majority of players, even like a Jeanty type, he's probably right on the fringe. But like any of the offensive linemen in this draft, Tet McMillan, it would be insane for those guys to not talk to every single coach or GM that wants to talk to them. Shedeur wouldn't talk to any of the good teams. He would just, I'm not talking. I'm not doing Zoom meetings with you. I'm not talking. So all these teams in the league that were good, once he starts falling, that even if, let's say, the Lions or whoever would have been interested in like, hey, should we just take a 4th-round pick on it? Should we take him in the 3rd round? It's like he never would talk to us, which I would guess after the Shedeur situation, anyone worth their salt that is managing a player, representing a player, will make sure that never happens again because it costs them a lot of money. So would Arch do that? Probably not with Peyton and Eli. But the other thing is like people. I'm not a Big 12 hater. I respect Utah and Mike Gundy in Oklahoma State and Kansas State and even Kansas football. What ASU accomplished, like playing that level of football is really hard. But relative to all the other conferences, especially the Big Ten and the SEC, it's the minor leagues. So, like, you don't get that much credit playing in that conference. And you definitely don't get extra credit. If you throw 30 touchdowns playing in the SEC, like, you're going to get extra credit. Look at Jackson Dart, right? Jackson Dart, what were his stats this year? Let's pull up Jackson Dart's wiki, little Utah kid. So Jackson Dart threw 29 touchdowns and 6 picks. Like, it's easier to validate that if you like the player. Go, he did in the SEC against a bunch of NFL players, as seen by all the draft picks. So it hurts you if there are questions about you and you're in a shittier conference. Shit, I don't think the Eagles have. They don't even look at people if you're not from Georgia or Alabama. Love the pod. How do you buy into SPS rating for quarterbacks and Jackson Dart receiving a perfect 100? How much do NFL front offices utilize the system, put weight into it? I don't know what the SPS. I have to text. I'm not quite sure what that is. Is that the cognitive or is that like an athletic testing? Giants over 5.5 season wins a decent bet. If you're ever in Jupiter, Palm Beach, reach out and get some top tier courses. I would love to go to Jupiter, Florida. Uh, I can't speak to the SPS thing. I'm not. I just don't want to misspeak. I'm not quite sure exactly what that test is. But I know this. If that's the cognitive one, I don't hear many scouts even bring up the Wonderlic as much as they did 10 years ago. So I think a lot of these other tests have replaced that. Uh, and a lot of people do, especially I think with the money getting as crazy as it's gotten, do a lot of their own. And again, you might be talking about physical tests, but a lot of like psychological analysis and like cognitive tests. Teams like former Navy SEAL type guys, which I mean, if I was going to give you $40 million, I'd want to do that too. As an Oklahoma guy, how do you like John Mateer plus 35,000 or 3,500? So basically, if you bet 100, you'd win 3,500. Yeah, if you bet 100, you win $3,500 for Heisman. Love the show. I'm not as super locked in on the transfer portal and the like what a roster looks like year to year. Like I can't speak to the NFL with the college teams. Like I just watch college football and by a couple weeks in, I'm like, oh, this team's pretty good. This team's kind of questionable. I was listening to a couple things, and I've heard multiple people that I respect that like cover college football, that know college football rosters, that understand the transfer portal and depth of rosters and individual coaches, be high on Oklahoma. Um, Obviously, there's going to be some pressure after the disastrous year last season, but we had Coach Dickert on, who is Washington State's coach, that coached Cam Ward and Coach Mateer this year. He's now at Wake Forest. But he said to us, and it's been well reported, before he left to Wake Forest, they offered John Mateer at Washington State $1 million. So Washington State, he was that valuable to him that they got $1 million together to pay him. I think people are really high on him. The other thing that I like about the move is his offensive coordinator went with him. So it was like a package deal. I mean, one of the things you hear is like, it's just hard to learn new systems, college or pro. It's intense. He doesn't have to. He knows the system. The other guys around him need to learn the system. Uh, I think Oklahoma's offense was so bad. I just don't know, like, relative to the rest of the SEC. Let me see if I can find their. Let's just get you out of here on this schedule. Let's go standings. SEC. Oklahoma last year 6-7, not a great year. So the schedule is this: Illinois State win, Michigan at home though against a true freshman quarterback, the kid that they gave $15 million to. I'd say that's winnable just because you're at home and you're playing a true freshman quarterback at Temple. So I would say worst case scenario 2-1, potential to be 3-0. Then you get Auburn, who might have Jackson Arnold, who was Oklahoma's quarterback last year for some of it, be their quarterback. Kent State. If they can win this Michigan game, Oklahoma has a chance to either be, I would say, 5-1 or 5-0 or 4-1. Then it gets hard. You got Red River, Texas. That's probably an L. No, it's an L. You're going to be an underdog. At South Carolina, they're going to be good. Ole Miss, probably going to be pretty good. At Tennessee, can't be easy. At Bama, Godspeed. Missouri, who's been pretty freaking good, and ending with LSU. This is my point. It's like, listen, the Big Ten, or excuse me, the Big 12. Now, Texas was down there during Lincoln's run, but Oklahoma started dominating that conference. And I think they won it before they went to the SEC, basically like 5 straight years, up until Texas won it the last year. And this SEC schedule, like it's a little different animal playing Kansas and Kansas State and Utah than it is South Carolina, Ole Miss, Tennessee, Bama, Missouri, LSU. So if John Mateer is good, he's going to be really good because he's going to be playing some NFL dudes on a weekly basis. Adios. Have a great weekend. See you.